Welcome back, horror fans, cinephiles, and Giallo enthusiasts. It's Tanner Leeser, your host for The King in Giallo. Let's do another unscripted movie review. Just finished watching The Laughing Woman by Piero Schivazappa. So this movie, not quite a Giallo, but a little bit. So am I going to go out and tell you, yeah, this is a Giallo, you got to check it out? Well, I wouldn't strictly speaking say it is. I don't really see it labeled as one frequently. I have once or twice, but if you look it up, it's not going to say this is a Giallo per se. But there's certainly some stuff in there that is reminiscent of them. So the movie stars German actress Dagmar Lassander and French actor Philippe Leroy. And real quick, I want to say this about Philippe Leroy. He was a captain in the French Foreign Legion and served in the French Indo-Chinese War and the Algerian War. Really cool, before he went on to be an actor. But so this movie follows Dagmar Lassander as she goes to the house, the villa of this Dr. Sayre, who is like a philanthropist, or he works with a philanthropic organization at least, and is subjected to his twisted S&M games. And you're kind of watching this wondering, is he going to kill her? Is she going to get away? Is she going to get the upper hand on him? What's going to happen? The movie that is closest, the Giallo movie that is closest to this, is The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave, minus all the gothic, all the supernatural elements, and then both stories play out very differently, but similar main male character in terms of this guy who likes to bring women back to his secluded, big house and torture them. So that's the closest similarity it's got, but let's get right into it. So plot-wise, the movie begins with, some very flashy pop art credits, and then we see a procession of men going by really quick. And then we follow this sex worker in the backseat of a car. You don't see who she's talking to, but she gets paid, and she mentions like, thanks, see you again next Friday. And then he drops her off, and she goes to her car, and then when he's completely gone, she walks past it, and there's another car off on this other road with a driver. And she walks over the door, he comes around and opens the door for her, and she gets in and speaks with someone. Okay. And then we cut to this guy, and I'm only saying all this stuff because it does come back later. I'm not going to go through all the little details, but then we meet this guy with an eye patch, and he's in this huge room, almost looks like a museum, and he steals a letter, like a gold gilded letter, off of this bust, and then Philippe Leroy walks in, and Philippe Leroy tells this man with the eye patch that, I'm sorry, but you were denied for the committee, or he was the man with the eye patch was trying to, I think, donate money or something to this philanthropic organization. Not really sure why, but Philippe Leroy basically tells him, like, yeah, we know you admitted that you have shady dealings with how you got your money, and we can't risk to have that associated with our organization. Thanks for coming in, but please leave. And this guy is just like, and he's going around, and he looks through a window, a partition, and he sees Dagmar Lassander's character, who I think her name is Maria. Yes, he sees Maria, who looks like she's a secretary of some sort. She's working at a little desk, and then we cut to the sex worker again, who's now on the phone, and she tells the person she's talking to, I know, I'm so sorry, I said I'd be there, but I'm coming down with something. And she's playing this with her two. One of them is like a valet, the other one's a butler. The butler, I think, is the actor who played the man who ran the insane asylum in Slaughter Hotel. But she's looking at them like, oh yeah, it's really bad, and they're both just kind of and so she cancels on this guy. And then Dagmar Lassander's character, Maria, is brought in to Philippe Leroy's chamber, his office, and she's like a publicist, or she's a journalist, something from the she's from like a group within their company that works with the press and public relations and getting their stories out. And she tells him that in order for me to write this piece, I need more information because I'm trying to knock it out over the weekend. So can you accommodate that for me? And he kind of quizzes her a little bit, questions her like, what is your opinion on sterilization, which I guess is the subject. And she says, I'm all for it. Like it's BS that women have to be the, you know, they have to be given the burden, all the responsibility for controlling the population in terms of reproduction, how many kids are being born. And Dr. Sayer disagrees. He's like, well, I think it's insane that the result should have to be permanent sterilization of the male and affect his virility, whereas these pills are like a temporary thing. You know, when you're on it, it works. If you take it off, if you're off of it, it undoes. You know, you're back to normal. So she gets drugged and wakes up at his place, and you get this very much kind of Night Evelyn came out of the grave dynamic where she's chained up to this thing, and he's just kind of psychologically torturing her. And you get a lot about his character, that he seems to be, he presents himself as this misogynist and this man who's very angry at women, and he really likes to torture them and torment them and scare them. And this is kind of how he gets off. And is it purely sexual, or is this part of his personality? Seems like it's a little bit of both. But what the movie does really interestingly as it goes on is as well as it playing with these traditional ideas of men and women, is also the trope of don't judge a book by its cover. Don't be prone to judge people a little too quickly. But as this is going on, the movie's presenting this guy is like completely insane. First, I want to say that Philippe Leroy's performance is like an android. He's very much just kind of, at least for the first part, he's very robotic, very like cold. It doesn't really express too many emotions except a little bit of like excitement when he's, doing his thing. But beyond that, it's like no remorse, no barely any, like no happiness, no sadness, no guilt, nothing. And Dagmar Lassander is very terrified of what's going on, and she keeps getting subjected to different things, and eventually she tries to escape, and it was all a trap. She's back in the house again, and Dr. Sayer is laying there, and all of a sudden he like opens a drawer under his bed, and you see an arm. You're like, oh my god, he's got a dead body with him. He starts talking about the idea of like, I don't know if they say it like this, but it's gene manipulation. It's the idea that you can select the type of child you want, whether you want them to be more athletic or smarter, or you want them to have an interest in football or an interest in the arts. And he's kind of disgusted by this, and I think he's blaming the women for being able to ultimately have the power to make these decisions, because it's, they're the ones carrying the body. But so it's clear that he's got a lot of this misogyny. It's not really the movie is trying to imply it. It's very much like that's kind of how he's speaking, and it's how he's presenting himself. There's a lot of anger and a lot of animosity. And one of the things he does is you find out that's not a dead body. It's actually a wax figure of himself. And there's a scene where he has the naked figure of himself on top of her, and she's naked, and he's telling her to like, yes, make love to it. And you want to control this man, but you can't control him because he's not a man, or whatever. And at one point, Maria tries to escape. He has her fetch some cigarettes for him. And by the way, I've realized after watching this movie that you see the Astor brand of cigarettes a good amount in Giallo films. Also, you also see a lot of like metal shutters, which I saw first in The Fifth Court. I saw it again in Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion, which isn't a Giallo. But then I saw it again in this movie. And, Astor cigarettes I think I've seen 3 or 4 times. So it's not a total, like, this is a thing, but just another one of those things that you'll see a lot in these movies. And there could be a lot of reasons for that. He tells her, like, go get me some wine or go get me a cigarette. Go get me a cigarette. And she finds a knife, and or more like a dagger. And she takes the dagger and she goes to stab him. And it's very clearly a prop. I thought I have one around here somewhere, but I'm not going to go look for it. But one of those like daggers, and she stabs him, and he grabs her, and he's like, aha, I caught you. Like, I literally said it. You thought I'd be so foolish. You're the foolish one. I set a trap for you. And then it cuts to him like, I need to discipline you. And he's just hosing her down it's like an empty pool, and he's above spraying her with his high power hose. And she falls down, just kind of had enough. And the water is a decent enough depth, like the puddle, that you realize he's been doing this for several minutes. But she starts struggling, and he starts snapping photos of her, and you can just tell this is his thing. And throughout this narrative is the idea that he could kill her whenever he wants, but he's going to keep her alive so he can keep scaring her and keep tormenting her. And at a point, she's just begging for death, like, just kill me. And he's not going to, because he doesn't want to. But interestingly, she kind of starts going along with it. It's almost like there's a Stockholm syndrome type thing. There's this great scene where he's playing like an organ. Then she comes over and he asks her to play it, and she starts playing it. And he's sitting next to her on the piano chair, whatever you call it, the bench, and he's just kind of like groping her as she's playing, and it's kind of got this vibe to it. But then she stops and just turns and starts making out with him, and he's kind of like taken aback. I mean, he's going with it, but the movie is showing like his eyes and like his reactions, where he's kind of starting to get a little because he's got this power dynamic, this cat and mouse game that he wants to do, but if she's coming around to him, it kind of throws off everything that he's trying to do. And there's like a scene where they're making out in this like little bathhouse room he has. And I thought this was interesting. She turns up the heat on his side, so he's like really sweating. And then she kind of moves him around where he's then standing in the shower area, and she just hits the cold water. And he's shocked, and she kind of laughs it off, and then it cuts away. But to me, that made me think of something like, okay, is she trying to give him like a heart attack or something? Because if you shock your body by going into like hot, cold water, hot, cold, you can mess up your heart. And but anyways, then there's scenes where, oh yeah, and he's just like, Philippe Leroy is like a physical specimen. That's what the other thing that's so funny is, it's like he literally is like this, not a Terminator, but like an android from Alien, like in how he acts, and then his body, he's actually pretty ripped. And there's a scene where he's in this pool, and he gets out and he stands and he jumps up and starts doing pull-ups, and she's just watching him, and she kind of looks down at his thing, and he's very much enjoying this, and this whole thing. But jump forward a little bit later, he's telling her like, okay, so I'm going to be putting you through these things that are going to be very terrible, but I want to scare you. This is what I want. So he's telling her that he's actually not going to hurt her. He's not going to kill her. Like, this is all just for him. So I think she kind of eases up a little bit and realizes, okay, so I'm not really in total danger. As the movie goes along, she kind of starts coming around to him. So the turning point of the movie is when we find out, when Dr. Sayer confesses to Maria that he's never actually killed anybody. All these women that he's shown her pictures of murdered women, and he's played her sounds of women being tortured and, screaming. He confesses it's all not real. It's all part of this fantasy play that I like to do. I've never actually hurt anyone. They've been sex workers that I've paid to come over and to help me indulge in these fantasies. And so after this, she stops fearing him and kind of starts to see like a more vulnerable side of him. I wouldn't say a sweeter side, but she starts to see this, like, it's like the hurt, the broken little boy inside, and she starts to kind of come around, and she starts to react more passionately, lovingly. She actually kind of swoons with him at times. And then there's a scene where they're like running around and kind of frolicking, and she's like, kissing him and then running away, and he's chasing after her, and she just keeps going. He's kind of like, again, I'm kind of thinking, is she doing all this to get him to drop? And they're running and they're frolicking, and she's snapping all these photos of him, and he's really happy, and he's like rolling this wagon thing, and he picks it up, and she's taking pictures of him, and they take a picture together, a selfie, if you will, and they look happy. And then they're driving off, and he confesses to her. He says, have you ever seen scorpions when they mate, when they make love? Do you know what happens? I saw it once when I was a kid. Right at the point of climax, the female kills the male and starts eating him. And I've always assumed that that's what all females are like, and what human women are like, is that, once you get close to them and let your guard down, is they'll eat you alive. I'm like, okay, food for thought there. And so she kind of realizes that he's not this sadistic killer man. He's kind of got a sweet side. He's just vulnerable, and for all these reasons, this is his way of navigating his relationship with women. By the way, I do have to mention the soundtrack is by Stelvio Cipriani, and it's amazing. It's actually probably one of his better soundtracks, and the music goes very well with what's going on. So, right there. And I will jump into a little bit of spoilers, just mention what happens at the end. So, this whole relationship has now flipped, where she's kind of in control, but not in this S&M kind of way, but she knows how to push his buttons, or how to get him going, because she's learned all this about him. And as the movie goes on and we get towards the end, they're in the pool and they're making out, and suddenly he just kind of is dead and starts sinking into the water, and she gets out and is very calculated, and you realize, okay, so she was working him. This isn't like, oh my God, what happened? Are you okay? It was like, finally he's dead. And she snaps some pictures of him, and she leaves, and she meets with the sex worker, and I think she pays her. I think Maria says to the sex worker that she had told Maria that he suffered from a heart coronary. So he has a bad heart. He has a weak heart, which was stuff that I was picking up on. Like I said, the temperature shock was making me think, okay, she's trying to induce some sort of heart condition in him. But she pays the sex worker, and the woman says, yeah, it's good to kind of get rid of him, but it wasn't really fair because we were playing him this whole time, and you actually knew what you were getting into. It wasn't a surprise when it was happening. And, it's gonna, I'm not gonna have him as a client anymore. And Maria's like, doesn't matter. Like, all these guys are the same. They all just want to, assert power over women. They all want to play out these fantasies of subjugating women and power tripping them, like holding power over them. And so he's just one less to worry about. And then when Maria is alone, she gets the photos developed of their time, and so she's got these all these photos of him when they were running out and frolicking, and she opens this book, and there's like all these other men in this book, the Polaroid pictures, and they're all like men of power. That's like, one of them is a priest. I think there's like a lot that are clearly like military, like generals or so, politicians, different types of powerful men, including the last photo is the guy with the eye patch. And then she flips to a blank page and puts the photograph of Dr. Sayer in and closes the book. And it's, we realize that this was all a manipulation. The movie has you thinking that he's the one in control, and you're wondering what's going to happen. Is he going to kill her? Is she going to escape? Is she going to overpower him? And as the movie goes on, she flips the table, and now she's the one who's in control, and she's got him like eating out of the palm of her hand, so to speak. And by the very end, you realize that no, this was her plan the entire time. So it was a pretty good movie. There's elements. It's an erotic thriller. There's elements in there that feel a little giallo, but overall, the main story doesn't really come across too much like one. Until you get to the very end, I was like, okay, that kind of makes me feel like it's a little bit of a giallo. But again, I won't go there. But the movie ends. We have this amazing Stelvio Cipriani song at the end that just wrapped it all up so nicely. Yeah, the ending really was. I like this. And what other things can I say about this movie? It contained one of the grossest scenes, one of the grossest scenes for me. And essentially what it was when he's like tormenting her and he's like telling her, you're my slave now and you're going to do what I tell you. He comes out of like a pool, or he comes out of like a sauna or something, but he's basically like, just doing his android walk over, and he kind of sits down and he gives her a little bottle of oil, and he has her like oiling him, and she's like oils her hands and starts like, he has her massaging his feet, and it's just this like shot down of his foot as she's like massaging between his toes and everything. And I was like, I don't need to see this. But yeah, so for me, I was like, I just don't want to see that. But so that's what I mean by it was the most disturbing thing I've seen in a giallo, which is, there's actually other things that are disturbing. For me, that was just, I don't need to see this. It could have literally just been a medium shot on him, like, sitting there, and a close-up shot of her, like, just kind of looking down, doing her work. I didn't need to actually see what she was doing, but that's fine. What else can I say about this movie? I would say check it out. Like I said, it's not strictly speaking a giallo. Maybe it's kind of got like, like dipping some fingers into the pool a little bit. You could watch it as a giallo fan and find a lot to enjoy about it. I bought it on Mondo Macabro, and it's a good Blu-ray. What other stuff can I say? There was a part where he's showing her one of the things he wants to subject her to, and it's like a mannequin or like figure of a woman in a gimp suit, like tied up, like with like the arms behind the back and the legs in the back. There's a name for that type of thing, but I don't know, because that's not really the stuff I'm into. But this woman is like in this shape, like, face down, with her arms back and her legs back, and they're like tied together, and she's hanging. And he's just like, I want to do this at some point. I won't do it to you, but I do really want to do this. And you can't really move. You can hardly breathe. All you can really do is roll your eyes in the back of your head. And if I leave you in here for more than a couple hours, you will probably die. That was interesting. Great shots. His house is really beautiful. And then there were just some funny bits with like him and the mannequin of himself, the wax figure. It's it's a good movie. It's very, very stylish, very entertaining. It's not really too slow. But yeah, the whole like psychological torture angle that the movie begins with keeps you watching. And then as the dynamic is changing, it's then pulling you in a little bit more. Like the first part hooks you, and then it really actually gets you to then lean in and kind of be like, okay. And let's see, did I anticipate the ending? Not fully, but I kind of was catching on that she was going to have the last laugh. And as far as why it's called The Laughing Woman, I think that's the only thing I can think, because it's not like there's really I thought it was going to be called The Laughing Woman because she was going to be going crazy or something. But I think it's really just because it's like she has the last laugh. And when you see this scrapbook of all these men, that's kind of the through line, is that she is getting she's getting out on top with all of these men. She's getting the last laugh. Unless that is a reference to something that I'm unfamiliar with, that's all I've got in terms of what that name means. But yeah, no, this is a really good movie. Great performances by the two lead actors, and yeah, I would say check it out. Don't really know what else to say, but if I think of something, I'll try and throw it in. But if you watched this far and you got to the end, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you've seen The Laughing Woman, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you haven't seen it, do you think you might check it out? Have you ever heard of this movie? This is another one of those movies that I hadn't really heard of. And I accidentally, in the fourth victim video, put an image in there from this movie. And I didn't do that intentionally. Here's the thing. Some people have called me out for putting in incorrect photos, and that is my fault. I'm not doing it intentionally. It's just that a lot of these movies, because they're so old and they're Italian, there's not a good amount of like stock photos of the set or of the cast or crew. So if you look up an American movie from the, going back, you'll find pictures of the director, you'll find pictures behind the scenes, you'll find all that stuff pretty easily. For a lot of these movies, European movies, let's just say, you don't always get that. And so some directors, you don't get pictures of them, or you get like one or two pictures, and maybe it's a picture of them old or it's a picture of them young. But it's not easy to find photos. And so when I was researching the fourth victim, for some reason, this picture from The Laughing Woman, where after he sprayed her with the hose and she's just kind of like, she's not passed out, but she's kind of passed out, like she fainted. He goes into the pool and he poses for a photograph where he's standing over her and he's got one foot on her back and he's just kind of like this. And I used that photo because accidentally my thinking was, oh, this must be the director. And it's like, because in the fourth victim, the movie opens with a woman drowning in a pool. And so I thought I just assumed they were related. Like, oh yeah, this is on set. But I was wrong. I was totally wrong. I just guessed, but yes. So forgive me if I ever do that. Like I said, it's not intentional. I'm not trying to mislead you. That's really what it is. And for example, also, I accidentally used a picture of Gian Maria Volonte from Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion as a director for some movie, because there was like no pictures of that director, or there was very few. And I see this picture of Gian Maria Volonte like this, and I'm assuming, oh, that must be the director when he was younger. And I put that in there, and it's not. It's Gian Maria Volonte. And I talk about this in the Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion video, that he's one of my favorite Italian actors in terms of spaghetti westerns. And he looks so completely different in that movie than how he looks in the other movies I've seen him in. And if I didn't know that was him, I never would have known that's who I was looking at. But anyway, so do forgive me if I put incorrect photos in. You can correct me in the comments. And if you do, I'll pin the comment so it's at the top so people know that I made a mistake. But if you're going to be an asshole, then I probably will get rid of the comment. Because like someone was like, I used to like your videos, but you made a mistake here and showed a picture of this person who's actually this person, and I just can't, like, I'm gonna stop watching. It's like, dude, it was a mistake on a photo. Everything else I'm saying is researched and is true. So excuse me that Google lies to me. And again, that's the other thing, is I'm not just guessing. If I type in a name, sometimes it'll show a picture of an actor or someone who worked on one of their movies. But when you click the picture, and it's not going to say a photo of Gian Maria Volonte on the set of Investigation of a Citizen Above Suspicion. It's just going to say the thing that I Googled, the director. And so I look at that going, okay, so this must be a picture of the director. But I have made a few mistakes. Again, if I make those mistakes, you can call me out and just say, by the way, at 12 minutes and 3 seconds, you have this picture that's actually this person. Thank you. I want to learn. I want to be corrected if I do make a mistake. But if you're going to be, an asshole and assume that I'm doing this on purpose or doing that I'm lazy, trust me, I actually do put in a lot of work when I'm looking at these photos, and sometimes I'm spending like way longer than I want to trying to find a photo of one fucking director that the truth is there's probably no pictures of them on the internet. Or if there are, how am I supposed to know if I don't know what this person already looks like? And it's just a random, it's just, like I said, it'll be a picture of someone else and it'll say the director. I'm like, okay, I know that's not who that is because I know that's John Sorrell or something. Okay, I know it's not, who it says here because I know who that person is. But if it's a picture of someone that I don't know who they are and it says there's someone who I don't know who they look like, I'm going to assume that's probably them. And if I've been looking for 5, 10, 20 minutes and I find a picture, I'm like, oh, finally I found a picture of this person. That's my defense. But again, I'm human. I make mistakes. I'm not trying to, cover my ass. It's just, I just want you to know that I do the work. And when mistakes like this happen, it's not it's my fault, but it's not entirely my fault. A lot of times it's Google, and Google is very unreliable. I won't say that, but I've actually had someone look up something. This one person I know at work had said that NASA used to investigate the ocean bottom. And I was like, that's not true. They've always been like an aerospace company. And so we both Googled it. Same words. We looked up the same thing. It wasn't like she asked it one way and I asked it a different way. We asked the exact same way. And the Google AI top answer was completely different. Mine said that's not true. That's a rumor that was circulating on the internet, and hers said, yes, it actually is true. And so, yes, you cannot trust Google. You cannot trust Google AI. You can't trust ChatGPT. You can't trust a lot of these things because they don't know what the fuck they're talking about. I've used ChatGPT before and I've asked it questions and it's told me factually incorrect things, and I will actually like call it out and correct it, and it's like, oh, you are right, da 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 da, and it'll say something else, and I'm like, you're still making shit up. I could have a whole conversation on that. It's a thing called dreaming that AIs do, where if they don't know an answer, they'll just make something up because they don't want to say, I actually don't know the answer. They'll just speculate, and they won't even tell you that they're speculating or guessing. They'll just confidently answer it. Anyways, I'm getting off. That was a little mini rant. I don't imagine a lot of people stuck around, but if you did, thanks. But yeah, this is Tanner Leeser for The King in Giallo, and if nothing else, I hope to see you at the next one. I'll see you next time.
Monsieur, your order? Monsieur. Monsieur. Your order. Monsieur.